Let me ask you something important. What if the very thing you're calling a problem right now is actually the doorway to the next level of your life? What if the pain, the pressure, the frustration you're facing isn't here to break you, but to build you into someone stronger, wiser, and more powerful than you've ever been? Most people see problems as punishment. They think life is happening to them. But the truth is, life is happening for you. Every challenge carries a message. Every obstacle holds a gift. The question is not why this is happening, but how you're going to use it. Think about it. When do human beings grow the most? Is it when everything is comfortable and predictable? Or is it when they're pushed, stretched, tested, and forced to rise? Growth never happens in comfort. It happens when you're uncomfortable enough to change. Your biggest problems force you to make decisions. They force you to look at your standards, your habits, your beliefs. Pain is not the enemy. Pain is feedback. And if you listen to that feedback instead of running from it, it can redirect your entire life. Right now, many people are trying to avoid problems, numb themselves, distract themselves, escape reality. But avoidance doesn't eliminate problems. It only delays growth. The people who win in life are the ones who lean in, who say, "What is this here to teach me? What muscle is life trying to build in me right now?" Every problem demands that you become more than you currently are. Financial pressure teaches discipline, focus, and creativity. Emotional pain teaches self-awareness, boundaries, and compassion. Failure teaches resilience, strategy, and humility. If you didn't have these problems, you wouldn't develop these strengths. Look at any successful person you admire. Their life story is not free of problems. It's filled with them. The difference is, they didn't let those problems define them. They used them to refine them. They turned setbacks into setups. They turned breakdowns into breakthroughs. Here's the truth: most people miss problems don't shape your destiny. Your response to them does. Two people can face the same challenge. One becomes bitter, the other becomes better. One gives up, the other levels up. The event is the same, but the meaning they assign to it changes everything. Meaning is power. If you decide that your problem means you're weak, unlucky, or doomed, you'll act accordingly. But if you decide it means you're being prepared, redirected, or strengthened, your behavior will change instantly. Change the meaning and you change your life. Your problems also clarify what matters most. When life hits you hard, it strips away what's trivial. It forces you to focus on what's real. It sharpens your priorities. Suddenly, excuses don't matter. Complaints don't matter. What matters is action, courage, and commitment. And let's be honest, some of your problems exist because of who you've been. And that's not a judgment, that's an opportunity. Because if your old identity created these problems, a new identity can solve them. You don't fix a higher level problem with the same thinking that created it. You rise by becoming someone new. This is where transformation begins. Not when the problem disappears, but when you decide to grow bigger than it, when you raise your standards, when you stop asking for an easier life and start building a stronger self. Your biggest problems are often signals that you're meant for more. They show up when you're ready for the next level, even if you don't feel ready. Life doesn't give challenges to people who can't handle them. It gives challenges to people who must evolve. So instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "Who must I become to handle this?" Instead of saying, "This is destroying me," say, "This is shaping me." Instead of resisting the problem, use it. Because one day you'll look back at this moment, the pain, the pressure, the uncertainty, and you'll realize it was the turning point. The moment you stopped running, the moment you stopped blaming, the moment you stepped into your power. Your problems are not the end of your story. They are the beginning of your breakthrough. If you choose to use them, they will make you stronger, clearer, and more alive than ever before. Most people believe problems show up to punish them, to slow them down, or to prove that life is unfair. That belief alone is what keeps them stuck. Problems are not random attacks. They are signals. They appear when something in your life needs to change, when the way you've been thinking, deciding, or acting is no longer enough to get you where you want to go. A problem is life's way of tapping you on the shoulder and saying, "Pay attention. There's another level available here if you're willing to grow into it." Every problem carries information. If you're willing to listen instead of reacting with fear or frustration, that information can redirect your path. When pressure shows up, it highlights what's weak, what's inconsistent, what's out of alignment. It exposes habits that no longer serve you and beliefs that limit your potential. Without problems, you would repeat the same patterns forever, mistaking comfort for progress. People often ask why the same challenges keep showing up in their lives. The answer is simple: the lesson hasn't been learned yet. Life will keep presenting the same signal until you respond differently. The challenge isn't there to break you, it's there to shape you. When you treat problems as enemies, you fight reality. When you treat them as signals, you start to understand what must change inside you to create a different outcome. Problems force clarity. They strip away excuses and distractions. In moments of comfort, it's easy to delay decisions and avoid responsibility. But when pressure increases, you're forced to decide what truly matters. Your standards rise, your focus sharpens, and your energy becomes more intentional. This is not an accident. This is how growth is designed. The most powerful shifts in life often come right after the most uncomfortable moments. That discomfort is a signal that you're being pushed beyond the identity you've been living with. The person who created the problem cannot be the same person who solves it. That realization alone changes how you view struggle. Instead of asking how to escape the problem, you begin asking who you must become to move beyond it. When you see problems as signals, fear loses its control. You stop panicking and start evaluating. You look for patterns, feedback, and opportunities to improve. Every challenge becomes a form of guidance, pointing you towards stronger habits, better decisions, and a clearer sense of purpose. The moment you shift from resisting problems to learning from them, your problems stop being roadblocks and start becoming directions. Pain is something most people try to avoid at all costs. They numb it, distract themselves from it, or pretend it isn't there. But pain is not here to destroy you. Pain is feedback. It is one of the most honest forms of communication life has. It shows you without sugarcoating where something is out of alignment, where a standard is too low, or where a decision must be made. Emotional pain reveals unmet expectations, broken values, or ignored truths. Financial pain reveals a lack of structure, focus, or discipline. Physical pain reveals neglect, imbalance, or disease. Pain doesn't show up randomly. It appears with precision, pointing directly at what requires attention. When you ignore that signal, pain intensifies. When you listen to it, pain transforms into insight. Most breakthroughs begin with discomfort because discomfort demands change. Comfort allows patterns to continue. Pain interrupts those patterns. It forces you to slow down, reflect, and question what you've been tolerating. Often, what hurts the most is what you've accepted for too long. Pain exposes the cost of staying the same. Raising your standards is one of the fastest ways pain converts into progress. When pain becomes unacceptable, action becomes inevitable. You stop negotiating with excuses. You stop justifying behaviors that drain your energy. Pain creates a moment of truth where you either recommit to your values or continue repeating the same cycle. That moment is where personal power is reclaimed. Pain also sharpens awareness. It heightens focus and strips away denial. You become more conscious of your choices, your environment, and the people you allow influence over your life. This awareness is not comfortable, but it is necessary. Without awareness, there is no lasting change. Pain forces awareness to the surface. When you begin to see pain as feedback instead of failure, your relationship with struggle changes. You stop asking what's wrong with you and start asking what's being revealed to you. You look for patterns, lessons, and leverage points. Pain becomes a teacher instead of a threat. Those who grow the most are not the ones with the least pain, but the ones who respond to pain with curiosity and courage. They let pain refine their decisions, strengthen their boundaries, and deepen their commitment to becoming better. Pain doesn't demand perfection. It demands attention, honesty, and the willingness to adjust before the cost becomes greater. Growth is often misunderstood because people associate it with inspiration, excitement, and positive momentum. In reality, growth usually begins with discomfort. When everything feels easy and familiar, there is no reason to change. The mind stays attached to what it knows, even if what it knows is limiting. Discomfort is the signal that you've reached the edge of your current identity and that expansion is required. Every time you step outside what feels familiar, your nervous system reacts. Uncertainty creates tension, fear, and resistance. This is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that something new is happening. Discomfort appears when you challenge old beliefs, break routines, or demand more from yourself than you have before. It marks the moment where growth becomes possible. Most people retreat at the first feeling of discomfort. They interpret it as danger rather than development. They go back to old habits because those habits feel safe. But safety and growth rarely coexist. What feels safe is often what keeps you small. Discomfort, on the other hand, stretches your capacity. It teaches you how to operate under pressure and adapt to change. When discomfort shows up, it forces you to confront your limits. It reveals where your skills, mindset, or discipline needs strengthening. This confrontation is uncomfortable because it removes illusions. You see clearly what you have been avoiding, and clarity demands action. Growth requires honesty, and honesty is rarely comfortable. Discomfort also builds resilience. Each time you stay present instead of escaping, you train yourself to handle more. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable. What once felt impossible becomes familiar. This is how confidence is built, not through ease, but through repeated exposure to challenge. Confidence grows from evidence, and evidence comes from pushing through discomfort. Change only becomes permanent when you associate discomfort with progress instead of threat. When you understand that discomfort is part of the process, you stop resisting it. You lean in with curiosity instead of fear. You start asking what skill, mindset, or habit must be developed to move forward. The path to a stronger, more capable version of yourself will never feel smooth. It will feel uncertain, awkward, and demanding. That discomfort is not a sign to stop, it is a sign to continue. Growth demands expansion, and expansion always stretches what already exists. The moment you choose to stay in discomfort rather than retreat into comfort, you step into the space where real transformation begins. The way you interpret a problem shapes your emotional state, your decisions, and ultimately your results. Events themselves are neutral. It is the meaning you attach to them that gives them power over you. Two people can experience the same challenge, yet one feels defeated while the other feels driven. The difference is not the problem, but the story they tell themselves about what the problem means. When you assign a meaning of weakness, failure, or injustice to a challenge, your energy collapses. You hesitate, withdraw, and protect yourself. That meaning limits your options because it convinces you that you are smaller than the situation. On the other hand, when you assign a meaning of growth, redirection, or preparation, your energy rises. You become curious, resourceful, and willing to act. Meaning determines motion. Most people don't consciously choose meaning. They react automatically based on past experiences, conditioning, and fear. A setback reminds them of old disappointments, and they assume the same outcome will repeat. This unconscious pattern creates emotional loops that keep them stuck. Changing results requires interrupting this pattern and deliberately choosing a new interpretation. When you shift the meaning of a problem, your physiology changes, your posture, breathing, and focus shift instantly. This change in state opens access to better thinking and creative solutions. You stop seeing the problem as a wall and start seeing it as a puzzle. Problems that once felt overwhelming begin to feel solvable because your mind is no longer consumed by threat. Meaning also influences identity. If you believe challenges mean you are unlucky, you act like someone waiting for relief. If you believe challenges mean you are being tested for the next level, you act like someone preparing for responsibility. The identity you step into determines the actions you take, and actions shape outcomes. Reframing meaning does not deny reality. It empowers you to engage with reality more effectively. The challenge still exists, but your relationship with it changes. Instead of fighting against it emotionally, you work with it strategically. You look for lessons, leverage points, and opportunities to grow stronger. When you consciously decide what a problem means, you reclaim control over your inner world. You no longer give external events the authority to dictate your emotions. This internal control is what creates resilience. It allows you to remain focused and effective even under pressure. The most empowered individuals are not those with fewer problems, but those who have mastered meaning. They train themselves to interpret adversity as fuel rather than friction. Once meaning shifts, action follows naturally, and when action changes, outcomes begin to transform. Every significant obstacle in life is an invitation to evolve. Problems do not respond to who you were yesterday, they respond to who you are becoming. When a challenge feels overwhelming, it is often because it requires a version of you that has not yet been fully developed. Old habits, old thinking, and old behaviors cannot solve new-level problems. Many people try to fix problems by working harder while remaining the same person. They push with more effort but refuse to change their identity. This creates frustration because effort alone cannot compensate for outdated patterns. Growth requires a shift in how you see yourself, what you expect from yourself, and what you are willing to tolerate. Without that shift, the problem persists. Identity is shaped by standards. The standards you hold determine the behaviors you repeat. When standards are low, problems multiply. When standards rise, behavior changes automatically. A higher level problem demands higher standards in how you manage time, energy, emotions, and focus. This is why transformation is internal before it is external. A new identity also requires new skills. Challenges reveal skill gaps that comfort never exposes. Communication problems reveal the need for emotional intelligence. Financial problems reveal the need for strategy and discipline. Leadership problems reveal the need for responsibility and vision. Each obstacle points directly to the skills that must be developed to move forward. Letting go of an old identity can be uncomfortable because it feels like losing part of yourself. Familiar patterns create a sense of certainty even when they cause pain. Stepping into a new identity requires courage because it involves the unknown. You must act before you feel ready and commit before you see results. This discomfort is part of the transformation. When you consciously choose to become someone new, your decisions change. You stop asking what feels easy and start asking what aligns with your future self. You begin to act in ways that match the person capable of solving the problem in front of you. Over time, these actions reinforce the new identity, making growth sustainable. Problems lose their power once your identity evolves. What once felt impossible becomes manageable because you are no longer the same person facing it. The obstacle did not shrink, your capacity expanded. Each challenge you overcome upgrades your identity, preparing you for greater responsibility and higher-level opportunities. Becoming the person who can solve the problem is the real solution, and that process reshapes every area of your life. Most people resist their challenges without realizing that resistance is what keeps those challenges in place. The mind naturally avoids discomfort, uncertainty, and effort, even when avoidance creates long-term pain. When a problem shows up, the instinct is to escape it, complain about it, or wait for it to disappear. But what you resist persists, and what you face begins to change. Every challenge carries hidden potential, but that potential remains locked until you engage with it. Avoidance blocks insight. When you finally confront a problem directly, clarity emerges. You begin to see patterns, causes, and choices that were invisible before. Engagement turns confusion into understanding and fear into focus. Resisting a problem drains energy. It keeps you stuck in emotional reactions instead of productive action. When you stop fighting reality and accept the presence of the challenge, your energy shifts. Acceptance is not surrender, it is a strategic decision to work with what is, rather than against it. From this state, solutions become accessible. Challenges you resist often highlight areas where growth is required most. The discomfort you avoid points directly to the skill, habit, or belief that needs strengthening. When you lean into that discomfort, you reclaim power. What once felt overwhelming becomes a training ground for resilience and confidence. Facing problems also builds trust in yourself. Each time you choose engagement over avoidance, you gather evidence of your capability. This evidence compounds, reshaping how you see yourself. Confidence is not built through success alone, but through the willingness to face uncertainty and act anyway. Opportunities often disguise themselves as problems because they require effort, responsibility, and change. If opportunities were easy, everyone would seize them. The very difficulty of a challenge is what filters out hesitation and rewards commitment. Those who lean in gain access to growth that others never reach. When you stop resisting challenges, you stop wasting time and start building momentum. Momentum creates clarity, and clarity fuels decisive action. Problems that once felt heavy begin to feel purposeful. You recognize that the challenge is not an interruption of your life, but part of its design. The moment you choose to confront what you've been avoiding, your perception shifts. Fear loses its grip, and focus takes its place. What you once called a problem reveals itself as a pathway forward, demanding courage, discipline, and belief in your ability to rise beyond your current limits.